when somebody passes away and they choose not to have any kind of service or a visitation or a viewing, our phone rings a lot and people say, aren't they having anything? People have an innate desire to extend comfort and care and condolence to the family of the person that passed away. It is a need that people have. Turning to the next page, and it says today's funeral options. Well, basically, kind of the big question, or the big thought is, as far as funeral options, okay, a person passes away, now what? Well, eventually, that person's going to be either buried or cremated. And then there's lots of other decisions that can be made as far as what are we going to do with those cremated remains, or what are we going to do with, Bob's body. I hope there's no Bobs here, so I think I'm safe on that. But so there's lots of decisions that can be made about the person's remains. With cremation, sometimes people will have a full funeral service first. They will have a viewing of the body in a casket, just like what you traditionally would have seen growing up. And then instead of going to the cemetery, that person will be cremated. And then you have their ashes or their cremated remains, and there's a myriad of things that you can do with them. You can turn them into diamonds. You can put them in a little capsule and have them shot into outer space. You can, you can have them turned into art glass. You can have them put in an urn and kept at home. You can have them buried in a cemetery plot. You can scatter them in a favorite location. Some people, they're mixing them into, now we haven't had this yet, but some people are taking ashes and mixing them into tattoo ink and having tattoos made. Isn't that crazy? I shouldn't say that. I don't want to offend anyone. But it's really interesting. People are now turning their bodies into memorials. It's very interesting. And there's a little note there about traditions and religions. That's changing a lot. There were certain religious practices that maybe didn't encourage or condone cremation. That has changed considerably. The Catholic Church is a very good example of that, where at one point in history, a Catholic parishioner would not consider cremation as an option. Now it's very much embraced by the Catholic Church, and they have memorial masses, etc. So very, very interesting. The next section, talks a little bit about creating a meaningful funeral. And the bottom line is that funerals today are very different than funerals even probably 20 years ago. More and more you'll see a funeral service reflecting the life of the person. They're more personalized, where before they were very cookie cutter. Everybody went to the funeral home, they chose a casket, they had the same scriptures read, they all lasted about the same amount of time, they'd sing How Great Thou Art and Amazing Grace, and then they'd go to the cemetery. Well, now it's so very different. It's very personalized. There's lots of mementos, there's lots of pictures, there's lots of music that maybe you wouldn't have traditionally thought about using in a funeral service. So it's very much about the person now and reflecting that person's life. There's movements around the country where the funeral service or the memorial service, maybe there's not a body there, but you can still have a memorial service. They're taking places in a venue just like we're in right now. Something more familiar, maybe a little more comfortable. There's lots of options. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing.